Imagine waking up every day, only to find the world reset to a moment just before your worst mistake. Except this time, the stakes are life and death, and the clock is ticking faster than ever. It started on a rainy Thursday night. Emma, a young journalist with a restless spirit and a curious mind, was driving home through the foggy outskirts of her small town. The streetlights flickered ominously as her car skidded off the road, crashing into a twisted tree. The glass shattered, metal groaned, and her world spiraled into darkness. When she opened her eyes, she wasn't in the wreckage. She was back in her bedroom, the clock flashing 11:59 p.m., the same time she'd fallen asleep the night before. Confused, she brushed it off as a nightmare, a cruel trick of her mind after the accident. But the next night it happened again, and again. Every time she fell asleep, she woke up to the same moment, 11:59 p.m. in her room, every detail identical. The rain tapping against the window pane, the streetlight outside flickering uneasily, the faint hum of the old clock ticking. She was trapped in a relentless loop. Days bled into nights, and nights into days, each one indistinguishable from the last. Emma's world became a series of frozen frames, a cruel repetition that gnawed at her sanity. She kept a journal, scribbling frantic notes about the time, the weather, the subtle changes she started noticing. At first, the changes were minor. A crooked picture frame, a shadow that lingered longer than it should. But as the loops wore on, the differences grew more pronounced. Whispers echoed just beyond comprehension, voices half heard but never fully understood. Desperate for answers, Emma started experimenting. She tried to break the cycle, staying awake through the night, changing her route home, speaking to strangers, even screaming for help to no avail. Each time the loop reset, dragging her back to that same frozen moment. It was as if time itself had become her prison. One night, driven by a mix of fear and determination, Emma followed the whispers to her attic, a place she never dared enter. The air was thick with dust and something else, an unsettling presence that made her skin crawl. In the corner stood an old mirror, cracked but somehow intact. As she approached, the whispers crescendoed into a chorus of silent warnings. She looked into the mirror, expecting only her reflection. But instead, she saw another version of herself, pale, wide-eyed, mouthing words she couldn't hear. The reflection's lips moved in a slow, deliberate warning, urging her to understand what was happening. Suddenly, the mirror's surface rippled like water, pulling Emma through with a force she couldn't resist. She landed in a parallel world, a mirror of her own, but twisted and distorted. The sky was perpetually gray, casting everything in a somber, lifeless hue. The town was eerily deserted, streets empty and silent, buildings decaying as if abandoned for decades. Emma realized she'd crossed into a universe where the loop had broken, but at a terrible cost. In this dimension, time moved erratically. People appeared and vanished without warning, their lives fragmented and incomplete. Emma saw versions of herself scattered throughout the town, each living different outcomes of the same night. Some were terrified, hiding from unseen horrors. Others were resigned, wandering aimlessly through the ruins of their lives. But all were trapped in a cycle of endless suffering. As she explored, Emma encountered a mysterious figure cloaked in shadows. The figure's voice was a whisper carried on the wind, yet it spoke with clarity and gravity. It explained the truth. The loops were caused by a fracture in time, created by a choice Emma had made years ago, a choice that shattered reality itself. This fracture had splintered the timelines, forcing every version of Emma to relive the moment repeatedly until the fracture was healed. The figure revealed that the fracture could only be mended by a sacrifice. Someone had to give up their existence to seal the rupture and free all the trapped selves. Emma was faced with an impossible moral dilemma: sacrifice her own existence to mend the fracture and release all versions of herself, or escape back to her original world, dooming the others to eternal torment. Haunted by the weight of her decision, Emma wandered the desolate streets, memories of her life flashing before her eyes. She thought of her family, her friends, the stories she had yet to tell. The choice was agonizing, the consequences unfathomable. In a final, heart-wrenching moment, Emma chose to sacrifice. She stepped into the center of the town square, where the fracture pulsed like a wound in the fabric of reality. As she reached out, a brilliant light enveloped her, and she felt herself unraveling, fading from the parallel world. Before she vanished completely, she saw all the versions of herself gathered around, their faces lighting up with relief and gratitude. They smiled, finally free from their endless loops. Then, darkness. When Emma opened her eyes, she was back in her room, at 11:59 p.m., alone. The rain tapped gently against the window, the streetlight flickered as usual, and the clock ticked steadily. Had she truly broken free, or was this the beginning of a new loop? A faint whisper lingered in the air, barely audible. The choice never ends. Days passed, but Emma no longer feared the loop. She embraced the uncertainty, knowing that every moment held the possibility of change. With renewed purpose, she prepared to face whatever came next, determined to find a way beyond the endless cycle. Then, one morning, as the first light of dawn crept through her window, Emma noticed something different. The clock, instead of flashing 11:59 p.m., read 12:00 a.m. For the first time, time had moved forward. Her heart raced with cautious hope. She stepped outside into the quiet town, the air crisp and fresh. The rain had stopped, and the fog was lifting. Life was stirring. Birds sang, leaves rustled in the breeze. The world was waking up. Emma smiled, feeling the weight of the past lift from her shoulders. The fracture was healing, the loops were ending. But deep inside, she knew the whisper was right. The choice never truly ends. Time was fragile, and reality could still unravel. She would have to remain vigilant, ready to face the unknown. As she walked down the familiar streets, Emma carried with her the memories of every version of herself. Their struggles, their hopes, their sacrifices. They were all a part of her story now. And the clock ticked on, steady and sure, marking the beginning of a new chapter.